Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another video for you guys, this one from SethTheProgrammer, talking about how whether or not the Phantom Troupe can take down Meruem. So let's go ahead and watch this video. Now this one was requested, so we're going to be watching it. And guys, as always, I have to let you know, if you have your own video that you guys want me to watch, just let me know about it in the comment section down below by writing the title of the video and the YouTube channel so I actually know where to find it. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and watch the video.
Hello everyone, it's your host, SethTheProgrammer. Today I'm finally going to be talking about Hunter x Hunter on the channel. So we'll be taking the entire Phantom Troupe, and by entire I'm referring to an almost composite variant of it, including Chrollo, Nobunaga, Phaeton, Machi, Finks, Franklin, Shizuku, Bonolenov, Hisoka, Shalnark, Pakunoda, Uvogin, and Cortopi, Kaloto, and even Illumi, Zoldyck included, as Illumi joins a little later on in the manga and pitting them against
But before we continue, I feel like I have to let you know that this video might contain spoilers for, just in case, this video might contain spoilers for the manga of Hunter x Hunter. So if you're not all caught up with the manga, there's your warning.
It's the king of the Chimera Ants, Meruem. Some people might think this is a mismatch. Maybe you think Meruem absolutely obliterates the troupe. Maybe you think Hisoka alone is enough to put up a good fight against him. Regardless, I think it's very good for talking about inverse Hunter x Hunter scaling, as there's so much ground to cover and different things you have to acknowledge for this topic. In all honesty, it's just the best topic you can really do to show how the power scaling and the ceilings work in the show. So without further ado, let's begin. First things first is the Hunter x Hunter, Akatsuki, or Espada, the Phantom Troupe. Now, unlike the Akatsuki and the Espada, which are actually established with specific combat goals in mind, such as being able to take down Jinchuriki with teamwork or potentially help Aizen fight Shinigami captains, the Spider has no real specified level of strength you have to be at to join. There are some things you have to do to join if you want to though, and that's usually being selected by Chrollo if there's a vacancy or defeating a member currently in it, so you could argue most of the people in the troupe are more than likely significant enough that Chrollo trusts them with the very existence of the spiders and to help him with his plans. However, one thing you'll notice is that there is a huge gaps of strength between the members, and this is pretty exaggerated in current Hunter x Hunter, and spoilers for anime-only viewers, when Hisoka starts killing troop members. Now, the Phantom Troupe does have a strength hierarchy, but they don't have a combat hierarchy. In terms of strength, the manga gives a list of those that win the most consistently in arm wrestling, which I'll show on the screen now. Obviously, characters like Uvogin,
of course, is
with the
number
force
one.
of a small missile, as stated in Uvogin's manga description page, is considered the physically strongest as he's a master enhancer, whereas the others specialize in other things. But this doesn't mean there isn't a massive strength gap for those that aren't enhancers, such as Hisoka pretty much off-screening Cortopi so fast that nobody even heard them battle, and the implication that Hisoka killed Shalnark in possibly one attack or so, although it's argued Shalnark didn't have his Nen ability by some, or even Hisoka easily manhandling Machi with his bungee gum. This is better defined in the data books as 3 combat stats: skill in combat, physical ability or athletic skill, and your overall Nen and Nen ability. So someone like Cortopi, who's a 3 out of 5 in all of these areas, gets absolutely flattened by a character like Hisoka, who is a 4 in all of these areas. There are exceptions such as Kurapika and others who can amp themselves, such as the Scarlet Eyes and Emperor Time Absolute Mastery. There's also usually debate over the credibility over the Hunter x Hunter data books, although there's actually a few of them. There isn't just one at this point, so even the criticisms people have is usually only for one of them. However, when it comes to actual character abilities and its scalings, there isn't much contradiction in them, as it's very vague with the most contentious points and characters, and most of the characters are outlined more specifically in the series. I promise I won't be using it as my only evidence throughout the video, but mainly as a supporting point. A lot of people also usually have a problem when you say that Hunter x Hunter has distinct power scaling, and like to heed the advice of Morel in this case, in which Morel doesn't believe aura level determines a fight, which it doesn't inherently have to. Morel is a great example of using your 300 big brain fight IQ to win a battle in the series, but as Killua later challenges, if you have so much aura that it makes your opponents look like it doesn't exist in comparison, it does definitely put the battle in your favor. This is obviously outlined with the Royal Ants and the Chimera Ant arc in general, but we'll go over more about them later during the Meruem segment. But it's also pretty self-evident throughout the series. I mean, take a human who does have aura versus one who doesn't. You can see why Morel's logic, while inherently wrong, is questioned by Killua and doesn't ease his anxiety about Neferpito. This is also debunked when Gon fights two Chimera Ant officers, and despite them using amazing teamwork and their biological advantages and hitting Gon dozens of times without him hitting them once, his far superior aura and talent allows him to tank all the attacks with barely any damage and take out the officers in almost single attacks in retaliation. Now, while the physically strongest of the troop can vaporize large portions of the earth and can easily overpower super bazookas that can take out tanks without any effort at all, many of the other troop members are still kind of lacking. An example, Shalnark is one of the weakest members of the troop, ranking in at number 10 on the list, and during the Chimera Ant arc he was stopped by two henchmen of Zazan, Pel and Boku. Shalnark actually struggles with Pel a bit, and Boku is more so a manipulator than a physical combative type, goes into Control Shalnark, in which he goes into his autopilot mode, also known as his last resort, to defeat them, which causes immense strain and fatigue to his body. This is extremely sad for a combat feat, as Pel, the Chimera Ant he can't even really damage without literally using Super Saiyan, is a Chimera Ant peon. As a reminder, a Chimera Ant peon level fighter such as Meruem is stated to be able to get one-shotted by a leader class Chimera Ant such as Zazan. This further reinforces the idea that Hisoka, one of the stronger members and someone listed stronger than Zazan in the data books, could one-shot Shalnark in his base state, with Shalnark's autopilot mode only being able to show to defeat a peon and a non-combative officer ant of Zazan, then quickly wearing off and him running out of energy. This is also bad for Pakunoda and Cortope, who are stated even weaker than he is. And while Cortope has a good support ability, such as his ability to clone 50 large buildings, Pakunoda has no good combat feats other than manhandling Gon and Killua before they even properly learn Nen, with Killua even then being able to snap her arm and bash her teeth in, let alone a John Ken from Gon that can amp his strength by 10 times, that could take out powerful hunters like Genthru while also getting many more Nen amps later on, such as his training with Bisky. Next we can go over Nobunaga. We don't really know a whole lot about him other than his ability to instantly fodderize and kill Gon and Killua pre-Greed Island if they were to fight. Killua also compares Nobunaga and even Machi at one point to Hisoka to help Gon understand the tier of fighters they are, although we don't really know how accurate that is considering Machi got pretty destroyed by Hisoka. You could argue that she was perhaps off guard, as she is stated even more physically powerful than Chrollo, could even take lethal attacks from Killua that were destroying Pakunoda earlier. Nobunaga was also a teammate of Uvugen, and while Uvugen always destroys him when they fight, he was able to fight alongside him and to keep up allegedly when they work together to have teamwork. Uvugen, the same guy who can catch bullets point blank with his teeth and so forth. Bonolenov in his Chimera Ant fight couldn't pierce the shell of a nameless Chimera Ant officer with his spear, and had to resort to his Jupiter Nen ability, in which he claims that sound is too fast for his opponent to ever escape from. This Jupiter power must mean he's large, planet level, obviously, but no, in all seriousness, it does not seem to be all that impressive, especially if it is his strongest attack. It barely does anything to his surroundings and kills the nameless ant. It has no real AP we know of besides that. If anything, Uvugen's normal punches, such as the Big Bang Punch, are actually probably stronger than that final resort. Shizuku is in an even worse boat, as she states she was forced on the defensive by Pike, and at one point states she might not even be able to beat him without taking damage first. Her ability also doesn't work on living beings and can only suck Pike's blood after she damaged him, which she struggled to do. I know I'm being a tad vague with how strong Chimera officers are, but I'll get into that later. Franklin is overall pretty featless, but he's stated to be the 5th physically strongest member, even above Machi and Phaeton, but below Hisoka, Finks, and Uvugen. He fires Nen bullets similar to Chimera Ant Squadron Leader Bloster. Kaluto was able to defeat an officer named Small Beetle, but when watching Zazan in her base state versus Phaeton, she is overwhelmed and thinks she is far beneath him, and even questions her ability to rise in the ranks of the troop, implying Phaeton would obliterate her without even using his Nen ability. Finks is implied to be the 2nd physically strongest and tends to not have much trouble with the
Which is insane when you consider she's a member, or he, is a member of the Zoldyck family.
Ant officer he faces, implying he could have bodied him with half the effort. However, Fink still has to use his ability to defeat him and can't simply just body the ant with his raw, base physical strength and aura. Phaeton is the only troop member that we saw to actually fight a squadron leader, and it's against Zazan. And despite being the 5th physically strongest, cannot actually damage Zazan at all once she transforms, and has to rely on his Pain Packer ability. This ability is stated to be able to vaporize Kaluto, and all the other troop members say it's dangerous to be around. I've seen some arguments saying this attack is as hot as the actual sun. However, in the manga, this is not actually stated, and the surrounding area is not at all that affected by his attack, although it's implied Phaeton is rusty and that the Pain Packer that defeated Zazan was on the weaker side because she couldn't damage him enough. So it having a set heat doesn't even make sense to begin with. It obviously changes its heat depending on the damage taken, but it is never stated, for as much as I know in the manga, to be as hot as the sun. Chrollo and Hisoka are pretty evidently established, and while it's stated that Chrollo and Hisoka are physically weaker than characters like Finks, with Chrollo being stated weaker than Phaeton, I find it somewhat hard to believe at times due to how high Chrollo and Hisoka's physical and athletic ability and raw Nen scale above Zazan in the data books, as well as the fact that Chrollo's combat feats with hand-to-hand should be way greater than Phaeton and Zazan's to begin with. You could imply, however, that perhaps Chrollo and Hisoka never went all out in the arm wrestling matches or didn't use their Nen to amplify their strength when they did it, their strength and skill being stated above Zazan with rivaling Nen, or that Zazan with her Nen ability simply gets to a Hisoka level tier of physicality, like some Zarbon power-up from Dragon Ball Z, that could amplify her power and durability beyond the physical abilities of Phaeton. Hisoka and Illumi are also used as gatekeepers by Killua, which he uses later on to try and scare other hunters such as Nethero, Moro, and Nav. Moro and Knuckle themselves rivaling Kite in physical strength, give or take, Kite being able to destroy platoons of officers with no difficulty with single attacks. You could also argue that Hisoka and Chrollo can further amp their high Nen and athletic ability with their actual Nen powers, with Bungee Gum being stated to increase its power if it's stretched out far enough, and Chrollo having an entire dictionary of abilities in his disposal. Hisoka and Chrollo, while near each other in actual power, favors Hisoka as slightly more powerful, and this is shown pretty well in their actual fight if you pay attention, in which Hisoka hits Chrollo one time and damages him pretty well, where Chrollo has to attack him numerous times for barely any damage in comparison. There's also debates if Chrollo actually had help during the fight with Hisoka, as he had a very long time to prepare for the battle, and it's implied by Togashi that the reason Hisoka is killing the Troupe is because he learned the secret of what happened in the fight versus Chrollo. The theory is that Shalnark, Machi, and Cortopi actually helped him in the background, which is why Chrollo's use of Shalnark's ability was weird, such as calling with it like a phone instead of using it as a game device, or how the cloning and control was far more in number than Hisoka, a genius by the way's prediction. Machi is also implied to have helped as Hisoka's bungee gum he was using as a safety line at the very end randomly disappeared, and all three of these people conveniently just appeared at the end after Hisoka lost just to see his dead body. Although this is only a theory, it still implies Hisoka is very powerful to the point that even Chrollo states he was forced to prep extremely long and wouldn't just fight him right away, and used more abilities than he ever had versus anybody else, even trying harder than he did versus Zeno and Silva Zoldyck at the same time. The same Zeno and Silva who saw Shiopoof amped squadron leader Cheeto thought he was a waste of time and one-shotted him. These two still took damage versus a suppressed Chrollo. This is another reason why I think the arm wrestling rankings probably don't include their Nen enhancements or weren't them absolutely going all out at all times, maybe to conserve their true powers or their status versus the other members, maybe not give away with their true capability, although Uvagan being number one and the other members compared to each other is still probably the case. Another reason I don't think Nen is involved is due to durability, which hunters and fighters in Hunter x Hunter amplify using Nen, or more specifically Ren, which enhances strength and durability, which may allow people like Chrollo to reach those number 2 or number 3 spots over Finks and Phaeton, and the others if they have far superior Nen or Nen ability. Finks could also be insanely strong for all we know, but that's not really heavily implied by his fight in the arc. Illumi is someone Hisoka thinks he can take even if he makes enraged, and Illumi thinks he can kill Hisoka if he's enraged. Hisoka also hires Illumi onto the Phantom Troupe because he thinks he's such a competent fighter and a decent challenge to him, ranking him a 9.5 on his weird power scaling scale, even higher than the Zodiac members nearby that he ranked 8 through 9, which they think they are stronger than Morel. We've seen what Morel can do. So it's safe to say that Illumi at least scales to Hisoka somewhat. Whether you think he's weaker or stronger, he hasn't shown all he can do yet. It's just safe to say he's relative. With the Troupe out of the way, we can finally get on to Meruem, and now for the most part we've been discussing Peon, Officer, and Leader class Chimera Ants, and on the hierarchy they're actually 2 stages higher than even that, and it's no exaggeration to say that the difference between leaders and their officers is nothing compared to the royals and the leaders. The royal ants are so powerful that they make powerful hunters like Nav literally start to go insane just from sensing their presence, and fears the royal ants more than death itself, and can even take down Kite, one of the strongest hunters on the planet, who could sweep entire platoons of officers and easily one-shot leader ants even with his weaker abilities. And not only does Neferpitou actually take down Kite so easily, but it's also implied that Kite got some on the verge of death amp and still got absolutely demolished, only landing some scratches on Pitou, if not just dirt or dry blood from Kite's following decapitation. And the gap is so extreme that Killua says that nobody's ever encountered would stand a remote chance against Neferpitou, not even Hisoka or Illumi. He's also met most of the Phantom Troupe, including Crollo, as well as Zeno and Silva. Now, usually you'd say that Killua is simply exaggerating, however, Killua is literally programmed with a unique ability to read the true threat level of people he encounters, even being able to tell that Rusty Netero possessed the Guanyin Bodhisattva while he was suppressed just by looking at him, and the needle in his head that forces him to retreat on a subconscious level if he senses someone beyond his power that wishes him harm. The actual manga volume description for Pitou, which is usually written and constructed alongside Togashi, as Togashi does volume specials specifically for them, actually says that Pitou is stronger than any adversary that Gon and Killua have met up to that point, meaning any character in the series that Gon and Killua have met would get outboxed and destroyed by Pitou, even in a fist fight, as Pitou has not even developed its Nen ability yet. Once again, the databooks make a clear distinction between royals and everyone else in the series, whereas many of the strongest fighters in the world that have 4 sort of their combat abilities, the royal ants and Chairman Netero, post 0 charge in training, have all 5s. This isn't even just their physical powers, but even their intelligence outclasses or rivals that of even Crollo's, who's known for his insane planning, and this is no exaggeration, as Pitou and Poof are such geniuses that they can master top tier Nen abilities practically upon birth, and instantly know how most of it works and how to learn and manipulate it, something that takes most characters decades to do, let alone hours. Poof even goes so far as to be able to absolutely bully Morel intellectually and strategically despite only being weeks old, and Morel being an insanely experienced hunter. Poof was also very manipulative and was able to actually speak over Gon without him really realizing what was happening while she was healing Komugi. Basically, while Hisoka, Crollo, Zeno, and Silva and Illumi are all top tier fighters, the Royals and Netero are pretty much the absolute pinnacle of what humans can ever achieve. Although it's implied Netero has a few advantages over the Royals outside of physical stats, such as his enhanced speed and experience, well as having no lacking trait in combat such as a lack of will or a minor fault in talent or intelligence. Even after Hisoka states he wants to fight Netero one day, Netero is completely disinterested and is only reinvigorated to fight and train once again after sensing Pitou and getting told by Colt that the Royals could take him no problem. Hisoka doesn't even make him flinch in comparison, and in fact came off as boring even. And even after being extremely rusty, his power was still convincing enough to Nav and Moro that he was the pinnacle of all hunters in the world, and even Illumi said that for Gon to even take out the top soldier of the king who forced Netero, who around 50 years ago was the strongest Nen user on the planet, to use a rose bomb, he would have had to sacrifice all of his Nen or his life in the process. Not even the king, just the king's top soldier convinces Illumi of this because of how far Netero stands atop the food chain. Another important detail is that Netero is extremely proficient in reading people's abilities, which is consistent with his character since he's constantly searching for the perfect being of his dream to throw everything he has against. But even with this ability, he never once acknowledges Hisoka or Illumi as contenders for top 5 Nen users, or even acknowledges them at all for that matter. As I described with the level 4 and level 5 examples, this was important because Netero would actually be a level 5 enhancer, probably far superior to the likes of Uvugen, who Hisoka never really mentions as someone he truly wants to fight like Crollo, with punches so fast that he could execute them faster than Meruem could move. In the adult Gon vs Neferpitou fight, the dead body of Pitou becomes amplified with post-mortem Nen and goes to attack Gon, with Godspeed Killua racing Pitou, in which post-mortem Pitou actually gets there first and chops Gon's arm off. Now while Gon purposely let his arm get decapitated because he wanted to be like Kite though, Killua was still using his Godspeed at maximum to the point that you could actually hear his footsteps for the first time in the series, yet couldn't outspeed this Pito despite being able to blitz pretty much everyone else in the series to the point they can't even see him. And despite Pito having a space advantage, it's still pretty telling due to how fast Godspeed is actually shown to be. Godspeed, for those of you that don't know, is stated to surpass the limitations of the human body in terms of speed, and not even Hisoka or Illumi could do anything to catch him or even keep track of him in the state. Yet post-mortem Pito is arguably somewhat relative to him. Gon then regains his composure and easily tags and obliterates this same Pito. Gon speaks and moves so fast as well that Killua barely has time to blink or he can't keep up, as the narrator states. For those that don't remember, Gon in his adult state is stated to be relative to the king, so the king being faster than Godspeed Killua, in Pito's own opinion, is highly probable, as well as the fact that Netero also more than likely surpassed human limitations with his decades of prayer for his Guanyin Bodhisattva. So you can kind of look at Netero like a far more skilled Uvugen that could also use most other types of Nen highly efficiently, probably better than pretty much anyone else, that can also outbox Godspeed Killua at the same time with an IQ heavily surpassing Crollo. Then you have Meruem, who the narrator states considers Netero the equivalent of an angry child throwing a tantrum, and who Meruem can counter using only a flicker of his true powers. However, this isn't all. Meruem also has a godlike intellect in the verse, just like the other ants, and despite only being weeks old, outdoes some of the brightest minds on the planet at some of the most challenging strategy games in the world, and even becomes the best Go player in the world in only 10 games. It's to the point that Netero, who Zeno states is unpredictable intellectually, the same Netero can read moral with almost social precognition, gets hit by almost a future sight level of strategy from Meruem to see through his almost flawless movements after trading thousands of blows, and rips his limbs off with a single attack, a feat that hasn't been replicated by anybody else in the series. If Uvugen is the strongest physically of the Phantom Troupe and Netero is simply a far superior enhancer to Uvugen alongside higher speed and intellect, then the Phantom Troupe may have nobody that can even withstand a single attack from Meruem and even survive, even in his base state. Of course, this is supported. The databooks have Meruem stats not even at level 5 like the Royals, but beyond the chart entirely. He can one-shot leader class ants that even give Phaeton difficulty, and can tank his attacks, and can easily dominate even possibly the strongest, fastest, and most intelligent Nen user we know of on the planet, while not even trying to kill him, and take little to no damage from him even after thousands of attacks. Even the Zero Hand, an attack Netero charges for an insane amount of time, and he pours all of his level 5 Nen and Resolve into, only scratches Meruem, and he just says, oh, that was okay, I guess, and it doesn't actually damage him. Of course, you don't even need to get started on Rose Meruem, who's even stronger and has Yuppie's Rage Cannon that can vaporize massive cliff sides with more energy than needed to destroy a small city, and that's stated to travel at the speed of light and having to require an entire state's military to possibly quell just by himself. Rose Meruem is not up for debate at all. I can't even think of any argument whatsoever that Meruem in base is up for debate either, and I think Netero being an enhancer makes this even more concrete. This is all especially true for the lesser members, obviously, who are rivaling leader ants and officers, and that no ant, Gon and Killua included, thinks anybody can hurt the guard or Meruem, and that they're absolute monsters compared to the rest. The only real argument I see for the troop winning is actually via poison, more specifically Crollo's Ben's knife. I'm going to assume Crollo doesn't have anything Meruem level in his bandit secret book until we see it, because obviously he had to do this insane plan just to take out Hisoka, let alone Meruem, and doesn't have any crazy stats we don't understand, due to being tagged by Zeno in their battle, who stated Netero's far inferior. Now, while a Ben's knife wouldn't work on Silva, who is a Zoldyck with years of poison training, Meruem has no stated resistance to toxins, so if they could land a blow with the knife, they might be able to paralyze him and win. Now, this is really only if Meruem is super relaxed and not just trying to kill all the troop and get it over with, which has never been granted with anybody but Netero, who he respected for its insane ability. But let's say he is more relaxed and just wants to see what the troop can do. Maybe the Phantom Troop bum rushes Meruem while Crollo activates his weird teleport, quote-unquote, like ability he used on Nobunaga earlier in the series, and then catches Meruem by surprise and stabs him with a knife when his aura is focused towards his front, and then paralyze him and win somehow. This sounds like a great plan and all, however, we've already seen Meruem get hit while completely off guard by the Guanyin Bodhisattva numerous times, and it didn't do any damage to him either. Netero's Guanyin is far superior to Crollo, probably holding a Ben's knife, which isn't even a Nen ability. Even Phaeton's Pain Packer ability is extremely unlikely to do anything, and it's questionable as well. Why I say it's questionable, say there are two Phaetons and Pito chopped the arm off of one and Meruem chopped the arm off of the other, and then they both activated Pain Packer. Would both Pain Packers be the same exact strength because he received the same amount of damage? Does the power of it scale to the power of the opponent? It seems more like the first option, and if that's so, we have no idea how strong it would become, even if Meruem for some reason decided to chop all of Phaeton's arms and legs off instead of his head, which he could easily blitz him and do. Pain Packer, even from a de-limbed and beat up Phaeton, could even seriously damage Neferpito at this point, who Illumi stated you probably have to sacrifice everything you have to defeat, and Nav thought the Royals had an inconceivable level of power. It just doesn't seem very promising for him, and remember, Kite also had a on the verge of death ability that Pito absolutely obliterated even before he mastered Nen. But maybe if he was put near death, that prerequisite Illumi said would be met and he might be able to take out Pito. But remember that even with this prerequisite, that Gon was put on a level of base Meruem and probably couldn't even defeat him in a fight due to the intelligence gap at the very end, let alone an ability just from getting beat up. I think I've said most of what I've had to say. Hisoka and Illumi think that even Killua and his friends are an issue, that they couldn't even take them when Yuppie casually stomped all of them at the same time while not even having mastery over his own abilities. You can't even argue that the Phantom Troupe would ever even be able to damage or use a single hacks on Meruem that would be effective without putting a controller up Meruem's ass and making him stand around. And even then, it's heavily debatable. The Phantom Troupe more so struggles with just officer to leader class ants. Royals are definitely more in the question for the entire troop to face than someone like Meruem, someone who Zeno can't do anything but be forced to fear and respect, not say that he's a rival to. All in all, I think Pito or Yuppie versus the Phantom Troupe would make more sense, although I would not be surprised if they actually won as well, especially post-mortem Pito, who blitzes all of them and is stated to be able to take out every hunter who raided the estate outside of Netero at the same time, or Yuppie with his aura that's over 10 times more, a level 4 Nen user, and his ability to span his rage cannon surpasses anything Uvugen ever did, and he's also stated to be more than 10 times stronger than Godspeed, Killua, Morel, Knuckle, and Shoot, will not even be able to use his Nen abilities, hunters that are all stated to be rivaling Kite. The fact Yuppie might have more aura than the entire troop combined and be over 10 times stronger than pretty much all of them should make it pretty obvious all in all that Meruem is not on the plate here. Meruem is beyond the normal cast of human characters, and that's kind of the point. But as I said at the beginning of the video, I just wanted to do this to explain that yes, there is power scaling in Hunter x Hunter. It is not just raw strategy all the time or anything. It's more like strategy, resolve, and power, if that makes sense. So hopefully no more Hisoka versus Meruem request. I think I made that pretty clear.
Yeah, no,
Other than that,
Hisoka
guys,
would
I am
not stand a
curious,
chance.
do
I'm sorry.
you think Pito or Yuppie could take on the Phantom Troupe? If not, what about all the Royal Guards at the same time? And other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed.
That's it, yeah.
Until next time.
Okay, so yeah, there's the video, and yeah, I think he explained it pretty well. The Phantom Troupe would not win against Meruem. I'm sorry, but the thing is, and that's, to me, that's kind of the point of the character. It's like, I feel like one of the things that Togashi wanted to say with Meruem is that, you know, it was revealed that the Chimera Ants are from the Dark Continent, you know, the place beyond what's known in the quote-unquote human world, or at least their version of the human world, or any map. And I think what Togashi was trying to convey with Meruem is that, you know, eventually we will go there, but he wanted you to know, like, this is what you can expect when you go there. Like, these are the kind of threats that you can expect. So someone that's so strong that it makes the Phantom Troupe, which a lot of people thought were incredibly pretty freaking powerful, make them look like chumps. So if you are going to go there, just know this is what you can expect. And he eventually made, to me this is interesting, he made Meruem so overpowered that he had to poison him just to kill him. So realistically, like, he knew that there was no one there that could realistically take him on in a fight, so he had to come up with another way to take him out, which is to, of course, poison him. Although, if I'm being honest, it does feel a little bit weird that, you know, it was stated that one of the goals of the Chimera Ants was to create, like, the ultimate being. Like, that was their entire species' purpose, was to work together to create this one being that can rule over everything, and yet they never thought that maybe they could make him resistant to poison or whatever. It's just, but anyway, that's whatever. That's neither here nor there. That's just a small nitpick that I have of the of that whole poison thing. But I understand what Togashi did. I get it. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Remember to leave a like, not just on my video, but head on over to Seth's channel, to the actual video. Leave a like in order to show your support, and share this video on whatever social media platform you use, and consider subscribing if you haven't, and remember to click on the bell icon, because that will notify you whenever I post a brand new video. And also, guys, like I said at the beginning of this video, if you have your own video that you want me to watch and react to, just let me know about it in the comments by writing the title of the video and the YouTube channel, so I know where to find it. Thank you so much again. Remember to stay safe and take care of yourselves, and please join me for the next reaction. Bye for now.